Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, as the thumbnail indicated, we are going to be reviewing the new AMT 1968 Pontiac GTO hardtop kit, the Craftsman Series Plus. A lot of noise on the YouTube and Facebook comments when Round 2 talks about these kits because there are a few more kits like this coming out. 65 GTO in May. They also reissued the 70 Wildcat in May, which is coming in its Craftsman style kit, which is just like a 30-piece unassembled promo, basically. Uh, I think the last time that kit was released in full detail, it was they combined it with the old AMT 69 Wildcat, which would put the wrong engine and wrong upholstery patterns and things like that into it. But as it stands, that 70 was only ever a Craftsman kit, sort of the way the 64 Galaxy and the Mercury Comet Caliente are. But there's a lot of griping about the price on this kit and these kits in general. And for full disclosure, we picked this one up for a whopping $29 dues. But how does that compare with, like, the new Dodge Charger, which we paid $30 dues? It's $1 difference, but this is curbside and it doesn't have an engine. So, are we getting screwed by the modeling cabal? Is it all just a giant conspiracy to take our hard-earned hobby dollars? Or is this really worth 29 bucks? We're going to get out the old red mat here and find out. Alright, so, the it's so new, GTO hardtop, 1968 version. The recreated, I believe this is recreated MPC promo. I don't think AMT had a 68 GTO that I can find any sort of record of. However, the MPC GTOs existed through the 60s and into the early 70s. So, yeah, presuming that's where this is from. Part of the reason why, you see a lot of, well, they're going to make a full detail version of this chatter online doesn't really hold water is because, well, again, it's 3D scanned from an original promo from 1968, and B, your chassis and interior and kit itself is parked in that 72 Pontiac GTO that they constantly reissue, and do you really want that chassis and engine underneath this car? So, yeah, we took the shrink wrap off, obviously, but everything else is still pretty much as it was. I will admit I've looked at the decals and opened that package, but everything else is still sealed. So let's dig into this new vehicle, or old vehicle. So this is how it comes. Literally, bag, no bag on the body. So keep that in mind. If you open it up and there's no bag on it, that's not a oh my god, they're out to get me moment. That's just the way these kits come for whatever reason. And since the paperwork to this kit is very minimal, literally, this is your instruction sheet. It's a 4x6 card holder into triplicate here. Your instructions are very basic. Your choice of whether or not you want to put the engine insert in or not, or put your own engine in if you're so inclined. There are plastic pins for the front wheels. It is a metal axle for the rear. You put the basically the top of the suspension arms on. Put some blocks in here to block off where your axle goes through. So you could modify this in terms of getting a blank piece of styrene and re-drilling the hole, as you'll see on the part. I believe this hole is pretty much the whole height of the molded in rear axle, so you could adjust the stance as necessary by just getting a piece of plastic sheet, cut it into the shape, and then re-drill the hole where you need it to be. You do have optional wheels on this, so there are two different wheel choices. Your wheel backs, then you throw the wheels on. You come down here to your interior, which has a minimum pieces, 2 seats, stick shift, the steering column, steering wheel, and the dashboard. And then you're over onto the back here where you're putting the glass in. You're putting everything, sandwiching everything together. And then down here on this bottom last step, you're putting the front and rear fascias on. Your optional tack for the hood, and the singular driver's side mirror that seems to be the way that most 68 GTOs are equipped, at least from looking at reference photos through the old Google machine. So it is nice that these front turn signals are clear parts rather than them being molded in or being silver. And then, of course, your rear taillights are also separate and molded in red, as you'll see in a second. Decal sheet, very minimal. We got pretty covering a lot. Let's go ahead and zoom in here if we can on this. And you have your sort of side GTO stripes in black and white. So I'm not sure that they came in any other colors. I haven't really researched 68 GTOs beyond sort of like looking at how all of these decals would apply to the car in terms of like which of these GTO scripts in white and sort of see-through black and these silver ones, like where would they go and things like that. So I don't know that these pinstripes came in other colors, but black and white will cover a lot of your various color options the car came in if you choose to use side stripes at all. And you do have 4 keyhole locks here. I'll give you an extra one because obviously there's not a 4th hole, but these go onto your door locks and your trunk lid. And then you have a series of Pontiac scripts over here, 2 for the front and rear, and then 4 for the side trim. So you do have extras of those. You do have an extra of the side, sort of the front fender trim, so you have an extra one of those. And then it looks like you have spare gauges, so there's like there's 2 tacks, 2 speedos, and 2, I'm assuming these are like clocks. I think that's what that is. It's okay. Even zoomed into me, that's kind of hard to read, but it does have sort of gauge. You can tell what they are gauge wise just by looking at them. Obviously, this is a speedo, so good job on the printing there in terms of being registered. And again, zooming back out to normal zoom, it's a pretty small decal sheet. So yeah, there's that. Let's get into the plastic. Okay, so first thing we've got is the chrome runner. We'll go ahead and zoom back in here so you can see the detail. So you've got the closed door, closed headlight door style front grille. I did see Sean, I can't think of how to pronounce his last name, but I don't want to pronounce it. It's Sven's World of Wheels on Instagram and Facebook. He's modifying this into an open headlight version. Now the cars came standard with no headlight doors, but this from again research material online, it seems that most people did go for the closed door look, and that's what they went with here. And your rear bumper is sitting there, and those are through holes. It's hard to tell on here, but yeah, those are through holes. And you have 2 mirrors over here. I was going to complain when I first saw this that this mirror up here has a great big sinkhole in it, but you don't use that mirror. You use this mirror. This is just sort of a spare mirror. I'm not sure what this is supposed to go to. Maybe it's for the 65 GTO, in which case, there's a big hole in it. But you use this mirror, and that mirror is fine, so I'm okay with it. And then you have the 2 choice of wheels here. We'll go zoom out just a hair because that's showing up a little fuzzy in my opinion. Anyway, you have your regular sort of rally wheels, and you have the sort of not dog dish, but rather sort of steel wheels. I think these are rally 1s and rally 2s, technically speaking, but they are nicely detailed. They are, again, see-through, so the holes are molded open. That's a nice feature, although they're going to go to a wheel back and not to an actual, brake face or anything like that. But they do look good. They will need, obviously, detail painted out. These were not solidly chrome on the real cars. These mags were an argent silver silver color, or I'm trying to think what the best way to describe it is. But if you go look online, you'll see it. And same thing with these. These are a lot like the Chevy Rally wheels, where these are silver painted and chrome. So you would need to do a little bit of little. Let me zoom in, zoom back out again. You do a little detailing to that to get it to look exactly right if you care. If not, roll with what you got. This bag has your metal axle. I don't want to open this bag too much because I don't want to lose the metal axle. And it's got 4 no-name tires. They don't have an actual any sort of printing on them, but they are redlined on one side, as you can see here. So you do have that option should you choose to. They are with the Tempo printed redline, which is probably the way I'll do mine. I kind of like the redline look anyway. It's a decent tread, I guess. And what can you say? It's a tire without any labeling to it. So, yeah, they are narrow tires, but again, we're talking about a factory stock vehicle here, not something that's resto modded or on current rubber. So, They look like they're prototypically correct size, considering what they were in, at the time period. We all sort of look at things and say, well, it needs bigger wheels and tires now, but that wasn't the way it actually was straight out of the factory. So if you want to do factory stock, I think these wheels do the job pretty well. Your mileage may vary if you want to do something else with the model, of course. In this baggie comes with the clear parts and your red tail lights. So we're going to look at these again through the bag because I don't feel like losing them. Decently detailed. We do have the raised pattern that the taillights have. Little detail painting on those because they're not actually solidly red like that. And then you have your clear parts, which have your turn signals and then your front and rear glass. Let's see here. What do we got? We got Vallejo Moto Color Black, one of my favorite brush paints. So let's see. It looks like pretty decently optically clear to me. There's got some distortion when you come a little further out, but at a reasonable distance, it's not too terribly bad. Back window, there's a lot of glare to it. There we go. And yeah, again, it's optically distorted out. Mind you, these are a good 6 inches apart at this point. It's hard to tell, I'm sure, depth perception wise on a video, but yeah, this is half foot apart to get the distortion from the curves in the window. But at a reasonable distance of a couple inches, the way you would look at a model through the how it would sit on a table, I guess. Best way to try to put that, we zoom in so you can really see. So yeah, you can still read through the things. There's a little bit of distortion around the edges, but it's not a flat piece of glass. Where it is flat, it's minimal distortion. So that works out well. It's nice glass. Glass can a little bit of a make or break proposition there on optical clarity, and those are pretty good. I like those. So then you have one big bag that has all the rest of your parts in it. So let's do this way. So on this parts runner, you have your rear sway arms, or the rear suspension arms. You have your seats. You have your dashboard. You have the front fascia that's body color. Your hood. Your engine block. And then your steering column. You have your pins for your front axles, your tack for the hood, your wheel blocks for the rear, or for the front suspension and the rear suspension, again, and the steering wheel. Again, these are just, styrene little plates, so cutting those to shape out of styrene stock and readjusting that suspension height, or just re-drilling these if you're going to adjust it enough where you wouldn't, basically blow through and be in a completely different hole. They are sort of, looks like you could re-drill these up here, but these definitely have a shackle system, if you will, for the wheel pins themselves so that they don't break off when you mount them, so that's nice. You do have some ejector pins on the underside of the hood here, but really, only way I would worry, that went out of focus. The only way I'd worry about addressing these is if you actually plan to put an engine in. With this being a curbside, I wouldn't even bother. They don't show through to the top. There's no sink marks in the hood itself from those ejector pin marks, so that's all good to me. It has a nice, these aren't drilled through, obviously, but nice trim. This is very smooth, very nice plastic involved here. This is the bottom of your engine insert, so yeah, you've got, it's there, I guess. It's the best way to talk about it. I mean, it is what it is in the sense of it not being a full engine in this, but I'm not necessarily sure that the real engine really had that much more detail to it. Kind of disappointing in the exhaust manifolds, if you want to call them that. Seats have a good pattern to them. It's nice and crisp and clear. If you paint these a light color, you got plenty of room in there to throw a wash in to pick them out. We'll flip this around, and we have our dashboard, which I'm managing to put out of the light. Sorry about that. Let's zoom in this way. That'll be better. Let's go. Let's see. It's in reverse. There we go. So you have good detail there. Your switch panels are there. There's no toggles to them necessarily, but you do have your radio, and you do have a key lock. I guess you could put the key lock on the dashboard if you wanted to for this let's see if I can get this focus. There we go. For the glove compartment. I'm not sure that the glove compartment necessarily would have had like an outside stock key lock, but then again, they probably would have, because cars of this era, having owned a few older cars in my time, not quite this old, but in the 70s, most of the time, if you had a locking dashboard, your key car key open the dashboard lock. And you got your ventilation controls there, so that's nice engraving. All in all, this is a very nicely engraved piece for it being a promo. That you can see they put a little extra work into some of these pieces. I'm guessing the original one's probably not quite this nice, and it does have the little place there to put a placard. I think there's a placard for the grill. I'm not sure. And here's your front nose piece with the engraved Pontiac logo already there on it. So if this fits nicely, it looks good. It's got some nice defining lines on the insert around the actual the grill and the headlight doors. So these are silver on the real car, so you'll be able to pick that out pretty good. We've got a piece of flurm there, and I rubbed it off. So cool. It's not. I thought maybe it was sort of molded in there, but it was just sort of stuck to it. So all in all, these parts look pretty decent. And then you have your interior tub and your wheel backs. Wheel backs, nothing to write home about. They're just the same sort of promo style wheel backs that if you built any 1960s era AMT kit or MPC kit you've seen before. Interior is a tub. That is a little, I want to say unfortunate, but it is what it is. It's again a scanned promo, so it's not going to have separate door panels. But the engraving on there is pretty decent. You can clearly pick out your door open, your window crank, the sort of side pocket, and I'm guessing on this car this would have been a cigarette or an ashtray maybe. I'd have to look at that's one thing I didn't do was pull up pictures of the interior of the car. You've got your pedals molded into the floor there, so it's a gas, a brake, a clutch, and a parking brake, and the center console is already in there as well. So throw a little flocking on the floor, throw the seats in there, and I think you're good to go. You do have let's see, zoom back in here. You even have the window cranks for the rear quarter windows for the back seat. So again, nicely engraved, nice detail for what it is. Obviously a platform style interior with separate door cards would be, preferable and would have more detail in depth, but for what this is, that's pretty good. And then the last piece, if that is not the body, is your chassis. And yeah, everything's molded in here. I will say that is kind of a funky way to go about it, because clearly this sits in here this way. So you have just the bottom of the exhaust. It doesn't really, I would have been better to me anyway if they would have sort of gave you the bottom of the manifold and ran these pipes the whole length here rather than having them just sort of appear out of the nether. But again, it's a 3D scan of what the thing actually looked like with a little tweak here and there. So overall, I mean, the engraving on this is pretty nice. It's got your parking brake cables, you've got your rear end and your exhaust pipes. Got nice indent to the tips here, so you can throw a little bit of black paint or gunmetal in there to define the edge of the exhaust. You have a pretty good engraving on the gas tank itself. I'm guessing most GM cars, this would have been silver, with the rest of the car being either black if it's undercoated or the paint fade that you would get on a full frame car like this. And while the exhaust does have that melty forever going on with the engraving, it's what you would expect out of something molded in. I'm not going to critique that into the fourth dimension, because that is the style of this chassis and it's how it comes. Would it be better if it came a different way? Possibly, but it doesn't. So I'm not going to spend 8 hours sitting here griping about something that you physically can't change. This is what you get, and for what it is, again, I think it's pretty nice. You can stick an engine in here. You don't have much of an interior bay. This is just inner fenders, so you'd have to build up all of the surrounds. You'd have to build your own firewall or source it out of other parts, but you do have the place to put an engine should you wish to do so. I think most people are going to just use this as a slump buster, as a quick build, to just build it as a curbside, whether or not they profess to like that or not online. But overall, yes, it's good molding. This frame is pretty well set out. If you want to do the thing where you paint the chassis a matte black and then pick the frame out in gloss, that would be possible should you choose to do so. I'm on the fence. I kind of want to order the metallic blue engine color that GTOs use, because I do have other GTOs to build besides this one. But I don't know, if you just glue this in, paint it all black, and just detail out the exhaust tips and call it a day. Make it sort of an alpha models type of thing where we're just going to not pretend, we're going to not pay attention to this chassis at all. Or you can go crazy and mask off this for days and days and days. So the choice is really ultimately up to you. And then lastly, you have what of course we all came here for, the cut the grass, the body. So the body, in the sense of no engine compartment, does have a little bit of engraving of detail up here with the fan shroud being in place. There's no bottom to the fan shroud. There's no, it just goes to there. That's it. There's no part of this fan shroud on the chassis itself. So you'd have to supply yourself a radiator as well. But, it is nice that this is here, I guess. Overall, I think this body looks pretty decent. I will admit I am not the world's foremost expert on 1968 GTO, so perhaps you will see things looking at this body that are not correct. But to me, in my eye, glancing at pictures, it looks fairly decent. These, bottom parts here are all chrome. They're nicely defined. You could either mask these off and paint them or bare metal foil them with no problem. It's not a, like where is the edge kind of thing. If you hear children screaming above us, that is one of my children telling the other child to take a bath. These surrounds for the windows are nicely defined, so you can again paint and foil however you dress your bare metal or your window trim. That all has nice mold lines to it, so you can cut around that if you're doing bare metal foil with relative ease, or mask around it again if you're going to paint it. You do have your GTO emblem and your GTO wording engraved onto the rear fender. You have the trunk lock engraved, your GTO emblem engraved back here on the trunk, and you do have the spot here on the, whoops, I'm getting out of the light again, sorry guys. You do have the spot here on the front where your GTO fender emblem is. So there is that as well. And great, the panel lines could probably use with a scribe real quick. They're not shallow, but they could use a swipe or two. They're again, like this, it's not a huge issue. The only thing I've really noticed about this body is if you look in the light right there and right there, those are a little bit of sink marks from these giant mounting bosses that are in the bottom of the trunk lid to fasten it to the chassis. They reach up to these big mounting bosses on the chassis itself. Those don't have an issue because there's relief molded into the top of here to take away those sink marks, but they do present a little bit of a sink mark on the trunks. When you sit here and you look at the rest of this body, the mold lines are very, very faint. You can maybe barely see it right along in here, and then of course with no front and rear bumpers, they don't go across anything in terms of the actual, front and rear of the car. You're not having to sand off bumpers and things like that. So again, they go, they come down here, go across the top here, but they're very, very faint. This is, and I'm not one to cavalierly throw this term around because I hate people who say Tamiya-like quality, because usually that indicates they've never seen a Tamiya kit before. But this is one of the cleanest bodies, sink marks aside, that I've seen come out of AMT. Now, I haven't actually opened and looked at the Dodge Charger, the new 2021 Dodge Charger kit, to look at that body, but mold lines are very faint. I mean, you're talking a very minimal amount of cleanup to get those body lines off there. Throw a scriber through the panel lines real quick, throw a little bit of putty back here on the trunk to get rid of those sink marks, and you're in primer paint and off the races. So an excellent job by Round 2 in terms of getting this body shell as clean as it is. The only other thing to sort of consider is, in terms of just a sort of full idea of a kit, there are some pretty heavy-duty sink marks in the roof here. They don't come through to the roof, so you don't have to worry about that. You have the pins here to put in your glass. They do attach to these pins front and back, so you don't have to worry about necessarily gluing them in and making a mess. You just keep your glue to these pins. But if you do want to go the extra little step of painting the inside of the roof to color key to your interior choice and not just leave it blank or body color, the overspray you would get painting this, you do have to probably address those a little bit, since this is not a full piece of glass that's going to cover it. It's just front and rear glass. If you choose to do so, that's pretty much it. And then you have your little blurb down here telling you that this is made in China and 2023, all rights reserved. So guys, that wraps it up. pretty short kit review for me, but it is a pretty simple kit. There are 90 pieces to this, so it's a pretty decent part count. It's got literally almost twice as many parts as some Hasegawa Curbside, so there is that. And yeah, I think it'll build up to a nice car. This is, again, like the Nova Wagon and a few other items that they've done in this Craftsman Plus style line. If you're looking for something to do over, not necessarily a weekend, but over, a short period of time in the background of a larger project, something more in depth, I think this is, and you're into 68 GTOs, I think this is a really good choice. So that, guys, is that. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you guys